You're recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And since everybody's inviting you, Mr. Secretary, I have to invite you to the great state of California and to come out and see the San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station. Look forward to working with you on that. I wanted to ask about something that my friend from Indiana, Congressman Mervan, brought up, which is the hydrogen hubs. And specifically, I wanted to make sure that you had received a bipartisan letter that we had sent on April the 7th about our hub in California called ARCHES. It's a great project to boost energy security. Obviously, we want to decarbonize things that are very tough to do, like steel and shipping and trucking. Great American innovation and a more resilient future. I would love to get any input that you might have. I know you said that you're reviewing all these things. I know you've got a lot of incoming, but we would be very grateful to have a reply to that bipartisan letter that we sent about a month ago, and just get a sense of your thoughts on the hubs and specifically on ARCHES.
Yes, and again, I'm very cautious about giving answers when I don't really have an answer. I've assembled a team and a process that's not political, that's not it's not focused on buzzwords. It's just a business, technology, business, and end market overview of projects. If we're going to invest a lot of money, we want something at the other end that's going to go forward, that's going to have customers and off-takers and move on with it. You mentioned that the hydrogen hub there particularly focused on decarbonization, and that's, greenhouse gas emissions in the United States on a per capita basis are lower than any year since I was born. So we have had market forces driving decarbonization. Wealthier countries in general move to less carbon-intensive energy systems, and I think this is a positive, and I think you'll see a continuation of that trend. And so things on decarbonization is more about what's the cost? What's the dollar per avoided ton of CO2 equivalent emission? And if that dollar per ton is low and market forces, buyers of those products or users of that will pay that cost to drive that process, that's great. That's technology at work and customers coming into a marketplace to drive things forward. So that's basically the criterion. Is the technology viable? What does the engineering show? What does it look like the end cost might be? Is there a marketplace of people willing to pay that cost? That's we're letting kind of the marketplace of businesses and people to decide what's viable and not what's viable, not what we like or what we don't like. It's just sort of an objective business and technological evaluation.
When do you anticipate we might get a reply?
This summer. I wish it was faster. In the 100 days, one of the things that slowed me down is getting qualified business professionals inside of the House and then develop a independent thing that every project will go through the same thing and we'll get results out. But that is now rolling. People are in there. And so it's I wish it had been last month. But to me, it's more important to get sort of the right answers because we've got limited amount of resources, right? We want to get the greatest bang for the buck for every resource, we deploy.
I share your desire to get the greatest bang for the buck. I guess I want to unpack or understand a little bit about how you evaluate the cost benefit of different types of electricity generation. So before you talked about geothermal being something that was intriguing to you. I don't want to mischaracterize what you said, but relatively low cost and high benefit. We've talked a lot about nuclear. Of course, nuclear has a very high levelized cost of energy, new nuclear compared to certain other sources, but also has significant benefits too. We got to fix the back end of the fuel cycle, as I will repeatedly say.
Yes.
Can you speak to how you evaluate other sources of electricity? We talked a bit about solar. I'd love to get your thoughts on. I want to figure out how we can best work with you. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Yeah. So again, great question. As were your previous ones. So I think the key thing on electricity is complicated. So it's more difficult than other things because everything fits into a big complicated system. And what matters is the system cost. Like you use the term levelized cost of electricity, and I have been for years, a virulent critic of that term.
Good to know.
Because it treats electricity as if it's like your gas tank. You put a little bit in, and you take a little bit out, and you put a little bit. It's just not how electricity works. At every moment in time, you have to balance supply and demand. So the most critical design for an electricity grid is at peak demand. You got to supply electricity at peak demand or people die. Texas lost over 200 people by not meeting electricity at peak demand. They died in our country. Think of how we'd feel with 250 additional murders. And so on Inauguration Day here in PJM, 65 million people, 13 states, 4 a.m. was peak demand for PJM this year. And at that time, we got 44% of the electricity from gas, 22% from coal, 22% from nuclear, 6% from hydro, 4% from oil. That tells you the grid was very tight. 2% from wind and 0% from solar. So when someone tells me solar, you know, when it produces electricity and you divide by all the costs, it's cheap. Well, but what is it doing? When the sun is shining and it's giving electricity, it just means all the other kit has to reduce its output because all that other kit has to be there at 4 a.m. on January 21, or in this case, thousands of people would have died, would have frozen to death. So to me, it's about the system cost.
I'm over time, but I would like to invite you out to California because there may be some people with a different point of view, and it would be good to hear your interactions with them. Would you commit to that?
Oh, absolutely. I love nothing more.
Fantastic.
I love nothing more to engage. And in fact, I will be in the Bay Area very end of May visiting SLAC, Lawrence Livermore, and Lawrence Berkeley Labs. And I'll be there for several days.
Now, I'm biased towards Southern California, so we got to invite you
I
down
think I'm briefly going to be at the Reagan Library in Southern California as well, like at the end of that trip to California. But yes, passionate about this, and I love to engage with people that have different perspectives than me on energy. That's how I learn.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll yield back over time.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Congressman.
Scott. Mr.